Hello, this is Jo from Maths Tutor Me. Today we're doing factorizing and we're learning to factorize trinomials. Trinomials mean three terms. The tri in trinomial means three, so trinomials you'll find have three terms in them like these ones here. So to show you a bit, to explain a bit about what we're doing today, here I have two sets of brackets that we're going to expand. So to expand them using the FOIL method, if you've hopefully seen my videos on that, you would do the first times the first, x times x is x squared. Then the outside ones, so x times b, oops, I put that over here, and then a times x and a times b, ab. So we expand it out and we end up with these four terms. The middle two terms I can collect together by factorizing out the x. If I take an x out of here, I'll get the a and the b from that term. And what this shows us is that when I expand it out, I have an x squared, I have an x term, and I have an AB, which is just a constant term at the end. Okay, so A and B are the two numbers that are going to go in these brackets here. So the two numbers are going to multiply to give the last number, and I have to add them together to give the number in front of the x. Okay, that all sounds a little bit complicated, but I just wanted to show you a little bit about why we are doing what we're going to do today. So, factorizing is the reverse of expanding. To factorize a trinomial, look for two numbers that add to give the middle number, the coefficient, and multiply here to give the constant at the end. So they have to add to give the coefficient here of the middle and multiply to give the constant, which is what I was explaining here by doing all that fancy expanding and whatnot. Okay, so let me just show you. All that explaining aside, all it comes down to now is that we want to factorize things that look like this. X squared plus 10x plus 21. So I'm looking for two numbers. This question is going to factorize to go into two brackets like this one here that I started with. And the pronumeral that I'm given here is an x. It's going to go in the beginning of both the brackets. Now I need to find two numbers, one number for each bracket. And those two numbers are the a and the b that we were talking about up here. They're two numbers that multiply to give 21 and add to give the 10. So if you're just new to this, what I suggest you do is you have a piece of paper with you and we look first of all at the 21. Now, 21 times is to give 21. We want to think of all the numbers that multiply to give 21. We could have 1 times 21. 2 is not going to work. 3 multiplies by 7 to give 21. And we could have 7 times 3 and have those reversed, but they are the only combinations of numbers that are going to multiply to give 21. Now, which of those numbers also, those pairs of numbers, also add to give a 10? Well, 1 plus 21 makes 22, so that's not going to work. 3 plus 7 does make 10, so those two numbers are the ones that work here. So one of the numbers, I'm going to do the 3, can go in the first bracket, and the 7 goes in the second bracket. It doesn't matter if you had put the 7 first and then the 3, it gives you the same answer. Okay, so that is factorized. That's how you do it. Let's practice this again over and over, and it gets easier each time that you do it. So in the second question, x squared plus 13x plus 36. Okay, so two numbers I'm looking for to fill in my brackets. So let's put the two brackets down. My pronumeral is x again, so it's going to go at the beginning of both the brackets. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give 36. So let's start by writing those down. We can go 1 and 36, 2 and that's 18, 3 times 12, it's quite a few for 36, 4 times 9. 5's not going to work. 6 is going to work. 6 times 6. And then once we get past 6 times 6, 7's not going to work. 8's not going to work. And then we get back to 9 times 4 and we go back through those ones again. Okay, so they're all the different pairs of numbers that are going to multiply to give 36. But they also have to add to give a 13. So let's go through the list again and see. Nope, not going to add to give 13. Nope, nope. Oh, this one, all right, 4 plus 9, yes. That does make 13. So that's the pair that's going to work, and just in case you're wondering, 6 plus 6 is 12, so that one doesn't work either. So one of these brackets will have a 4 at the end of it, and the other one will have a positive 9. Okay, let's have a look at the next question. Y squared minus 9y plus 20. Okay, so what we need to start looking at now is that we can actually have negative numbers coming into play here. So I have a negative 9 in here, a positive 20. So in my brackets, still start out the same way. This time my pronumeral is y, which will go at the start of both my brackets. I'm still looking for two numbers that multiply to give 20. Now, knowing that I've got some minus things happening here, positive numbers, a positive number and a positive number multiplies together to give a positive answer. But a negative number and a negative number also can multiply together to give you a positive 20. And two negative numbers can also add to give a negative answer. Two positive numbers are never going to add to give a negative 9. So I'm actually looking for, in this question, I need two negative numbers that are going to times together to give 20. Okay, so let's find the things that multiply to give 20. So 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 3 doesn't work, 4 and 5 works, and then that's all my pairs. Okay, now I've just said they need to be negative, so let's put minus signs in front of all of them. There they are. So now which of those pairs are going to add to give a negative 9? Minus 1 and minus 20, that's minus 21. Minus 2 and minus 10, that's minus 12. Minus 4 and minus 5 makes a minus 9. That works. So minus 4 and minus 5 are my answer. Is my answer. Okay, so the more you do of these, eventually you won't have to write all this working out down. Now, if you're doing this for a test, then you want to be writing all of this on your test paper so that your teacher can see all of your working out. But in order to try and squeeze more questions onto my sheet here, I haven't left myself any room to do that, which is why I'm using a scrap bit of paper here to show all the numbers that we're trying. Okay, so let's do it again for question 4. Let's put our brackets down. And this time Z is the pronumeral. Okay, so I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give a negative 24. Now, if it has to multiply to give a negative, positive and positive numbers, two positive numbers are never going to work. Two negative numbers won't give me a positive again, so that's not going to work. It has to be one positive number and one negative number in order for me to get a negative answer when I multiply them. So let's look for 24. What things can times give 24? 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6, 5's not going to work, 6 goes back to this one again. All right, so there's all my different numbers. One of them has to be positive and one of them has to be negative. But it can't just be a random anyone positive, anyone negative. This number here will tell me which one needs to be negative. Because I have a minus 5, in order to get a negative number when I've added two things together, the bigger number has to be the negative one. Otherwise, I would get a positive answer, wouldn't I? So I'm going to make the bigger number the negative one. So negative 12 here, negative 8, negative 6. Now, all of those will multiply to give a negative 24. Which one of them will add to give a negative 5? Well, 1 minus 24, that's minus 23. 2 minus 12 is minus 10. 3 minus 8, ooh, that's minus 5. That works. So that's a positive 3 and a negative 8. That will give me the correct answers. Now, just in case you're unsure, you can always use your FOIL expansion to expand it all out again to make sure that you've got it right. That's always an excellent thing to do to check. Okay, question 5. A squared plus 7a minus 30. Okay, so a is the prime numeral. A goes at the beginning of both the brackets. I have a negative 30, so again I'm going to need one positive and one negative number in order to get a negative here. Now let's list all the things that make a negative 30. 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 4 is not going to work, 5 and 6, 6 and 5, and then we go back through again. Okay, so this time I have a positive 7. They're adding to make a positive number, so that means that the bigger number has to be positive. So let's make the smaller number the negative 1. And which of those will make a 7 when we put them together? Minus 1, that doesn't make 7. That doesn't make 7. Ooh, minus 3 plus 10, that makes 7. So minus 3 and plus 10. Okay, 6. Start the brackets. We have a trinomial. Put a D in front of each bracket. Okay, so all the things that multiply to give a negative 42. So one's a plus, one's a minus. We have 1 and 42. We have 2 and 21. We have 3 and 14. 4 is not going to work. 5 is not going to work. 6 and 7 works. Okay, and then we've got them all. Alright, so because we are getting a positive 1 in here, so there's no number which makes it a 1. It's a positive number, which means that the bigger number has to be positive. So make all the smaller ones the negatives. Okay, and now let's see which of those will make a positive 1. Not going to be any of those. That one there makes positive 1. So minus 6 and a positive 7. Okay, down the bottom we have 3n squared plus 6n minus 9. Now we're not used to having any numbers in front of our n squared or thing at the beginning here. So always see if you can factorize a common factor out first. And in this case we can. So I can factorize a 3 out, giving me n squared plus 2n minus 3. Okay, now that looks like what we've been doing. So I can just leave the 3 at the front and factorize the trinomial in here into 2 brackets here. So I'm looking for a number that multiplies to give a negative 3. So that means I need a positive and a negative number again. And has to add to give a positive 2. Now there is only 1 and 3 that times is to give a 3. The bigger number has to be positive to make a positive 2. So that means the 1 is negative, and minus 1 plus 3 does give you a positive 2. So I have an n, forgot to write that earlier, in front of both brackets. A minus 1 and a plus 3 goes afterwards. Alright, so that is how you factorize trinomials. So on the next page, here is some questions just like what we've just done for you to practice and see if you can do some of these by yourself. Let's pause the video and give them a shot, and then we'll go through the answers. Okay, now I am not going to put all my working out on the paper here for the answers. The more you practice these, hopefully you won't need to be writing this down all the time. While you're still learning, definitely keep doing it. But keep practicing and practicing until you get to the point where you can do it without having to do this. Alright, so question 1, 2 brackets, x at the beginning of both brackets. I'm looking for numbers that multiply to give a positive 10 and add to give 7. So things that times to give 10 will be a 2 and a 5, which does add to give a 7. So positive 2 and a positive 5. Question 2, h is my prenumeral. I'm timesing to give negative 16 and adding to give a 6. So one of my numbers will need to be negative. 2 times 8 gives me 16. If I make the 2 negative and the 8 positive, that will give me a positive 6. So you'll see that if you can do the working out in your head, you'll get much, much faster at these questions. So brackets again for the third one, k at the beginning of both your brackets, timesing to give negative 50. So one of the numbers is negative, and adding to give a negative 5. So 10 times 5 gives me 50. If I make the 10 negative this time, and a positive 5, 10 times 5 gives me 50, and a negative 10 will make that a negative 5 when you add those together. Question 4, put the p at the front of the brackets. Timesing to give a 6 and adding to give a negative 5. Timesing to give 6 would be a 2 and a 3. Both of them will need to be negative to give me a negative 5. So negative 2 and a negative 3. Times is to give a positive, but adds to give the negative, which is what we need. Question 5. W at the beginning of each bracket. Timesing to give 45 and adding, or negative 45 and adding to give a negative 12. 45, let's try negative 15 and a plus 3. Negative 15 and a positive 3 will give me negative 45 and will also make a negative 12. Question 6. Oh, I have the number at the front here. So let's factorize this to give me b squared minus 3b minus 10, taking 4 out of everything. Then leave the 4 and split it into the double bracket. Timesing to give a negative 10 and adding to give a negative 3. 10 could be 5 and 2. If I have a negative 5 and a positive 2, they times to give a negative 10, they add to give a negative 3. And lucky last, we have a 2 at the front again. Let's factorize that out. So that will give me 12c and minus 45. Okay, that's similar to one we did earlier. Timesing to give a negative 45 and a positive 12, adding to give a positive 12 would be a positive 15 and a negative 3, kind of the reverse of what we did with this one here. Alright, so hopefully you got those answers. Keep practicing, like I said, until you can do those as quickly as I have done them, and hopefully doing most of that working out in your head. Alright, I will see you next time. We're going to do some harder trinomials. Catch you then. Bye.